Hello, good evening to you, and a warm welcome to Asaase Business PM. My name is Emmanuel Aboagye-Wiafe, and I'm doing this with Rosemary Balami. Tonight on SDG-Hub, we'll be discussing the topic Transport in Ghana, E-Mobility and Achieving Net Zero Emissions. Our guests are Frank Cann, Chief Business Officer, Growth and Partnerships at Solar Taxi, and Nii Noi Omaboe, Program Analyst at Impact Hub Accra and Deputy Board Chair for the YRE Ghana. Business PM is proudly brought to you in partnership with the Center for Sustainable Transformation. This is the SDG Hub, where we discuss challenges and opportunities in everyday business to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, as we affectionately call them. These are 17 goals with targets and indicators agreed on by UN member states, including Ghana, to make the world a more suitable and equitable, greener and peaceful place to live by the year 2030. Like I said, my name is Emmanuel Aboagye-Wiafe. I'll be doing this with
Rosemary Balami.
All right. Thank you very much for staying with us. Rosemary Balami is from the Young Reporters for the Environment, YRE, at the Center for Sustainable Transformation. Now, our society today depends largely on transportation, but Ghana's current mobility system is a source of air pollution and health issues, as well as global climate change. In addition, it is spacious and demands a lot of land, which could be used for other purposes. It is also inefficient with regard to the time needed to move from point A to point B. In contrast, an efficient, cost-effective and sustainable transport system is indispensable to the economic, social, environmental and political development of our country. Tonight on SDG Hub, we'll explore the contribution of Ghana's transport sector to carbon emissions and how e-mobility, that is the use of electrical vehicles, could be one of the solutions in the mix of changes needed to reduce local and global pollution. Well, before we delve into this conversation, let's listen to some information on the transport sector's impact on the environment.
Yes, Emmanuel. Data shows that Ghana's transport sector contributes 23% of energy-related CO2 emissions, a main source to climate change, and is the fastest growing sector in terms of greenhouse gas emissions in our country. Road transport alone contributed 45.4% to total fuel combustion emissions and accounted for 13% of the overall national greenhouse gas emissions in 2016. Although the standard of car parks in cities like Accra has improved over the years, it has also increased rapidly. Also, about 84% of passenger trips are made with public transport, which in itself is good. But public transport, popularly known as trotro, mostly consists of imported used cars with poor fuel economy and high greenhouse gas emissions, causing local air pollution. We also know that a lot of the fuel used in Ghana is of such bad quality that developed countries do not allow it in their vehicles.
Well, these are staggering figures, but we have the experts in the field to share their insights on this matter. They are Frank Cann, he is the Chief Business Officer for Growth and Partnerships at Solar Taxi, and Nii Noi Omaboe, Program Analyst at Impact Hub Accra, and also Deputy Board Chair at the Young Reporters for the Environment. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, and thank you very much.
I'm also listening to your response.
Good evening, and thank you for having us.
Good to see you in our studios. Now, quickly tell us about yourselves, what you do briefly at Solar Taxi first.
Right. My name is Frank Cann. I'm the Chief Business Officer for Growth and Partnerships at Solar Taxi. And basically what I do at Solar Taxi is make sure the inside is doing well, the outside is doing well, and everything in between.
Okay, that's good. And
yeah, I guess I'm a familiar face.
Of course, I was going to say
my name is Nii Noi Omaboe. I serve on the board of YRE, but also work as program analyst at Impact Hub Accra. What Impact Hub does is to work in the nexus of entrepreneurship impact, and what we are doing is acting as a catalyst. We are bringing together everybody working on the e-mobility solutions, from society to entrepreneurs, and trying to work closer with government on the transition to a better transport future.
Yeah.
Impressive. All right, quickly let's move into action. And we want to know about the e-mobility and how different is it from the current transportation system? Let me start with you first, Frank.
So e-mobility has the word electric in it. That's the E. So basically, what it means is that the use of electric vehicles for mobility-related activities. So let's say from electric bikes to cars to vans and then trucks as well. So any aspect of mobility that is utilizing electric cars. Yeah, that's e-mobility.
I know we also have electric trains, or we are trying to, we're envisioning to get electric trains. Could that also come under e-mobility?
Yeah, that also features in e-mobility, so long as it's something that
Based on electricity.
is based on electricity, exactly.
Right. Now, looking at Ghana's nationally determined contributions to reducing climate change emissions, Ghana has committed to unconditionally lower greenhouse gas emissions by 15% by the year 2030. Now, how can e-mobility help achieve these targets, especially when we have only 7 years away?
Yeah, so when you look at Ghana's NDCs, which is basically our nationally determined contributions, our emission targets in terms of dealing with climate change, and the transport sector's budget is 0.11 metric tons of CO2. And what this means is that if we are able to move into a better transport future, which is not run on fossil fuel, but cleaner and safer, it means that we'll be able to meet our climate targets. But it also has multiple benefits in terms of how we'll be able to channel the cost, economic cost that goes into health, because our current system of transporting ourselves is highly dependent on fossil fuel, which means that it's connected to issues of air pollution, respiratory diseases like asthma, and how it affects children and more. And so if we are able to deal with it also provides multiple benefits in terms of channeling the money that we'll spend on public health into doing something better for ourselves as a country.
And are we really ready to get ourselves fixed into this shift into renewables? Because, like, we're talking about e-mobility, but I know that in the Western world, they have the adequate infrastructure, the charging ports here and there that they could use to, get their cars back on track. Do we have that here in Ghana?
Well, I would say it's currently at a very slow pace. The discussion is not quite out there. We are not getting easy buy-in from government to see how we can transition faster. So the challenge is quite difficult, but we are making progress. There are a number of EV companies that are now springing up, like Solar Taxi. Okay. But also we are also seeing people also working in swapping system, charging infrastructure, which is very important in the transition process. So it's quite slow, but we are getting there. Progress, and that's why the work of Impact Hub as a catalyst is important.
Okay. Now, Frank, tell us about Solar Taxi in promoting sustainable transportation.
Thank you very much. So for Solar Taxi, we are looking at providing affordable and eco-friendly solutions for sustainability problems, and this has the range of from electric bikes and scooters to electric cars and buses, electric vans, as well as electric trucks. Now, we believe that providing these solutions would help us move into a cleaner transportation system, and then also reduce the carbon emission related with fuel-based vehicles. And at the end goal of that, having a cleaner environment and then preserving the planet as well.
And so do you only operate in Accra? If yes, do you have plans of expanding to other places as well?
Yeah, so Solar Taxi, we have 5 branches in Accra alone. We also have presence in Takrady, Kumasi, and then Tamale. We're looking at rolling out to the remaining regions by the end of this year. So we have presence in basically all the major cities in Ghana currently.
So Solar Taxi, is it purely using solar energy, or you also channel it into e-vehicles?
So the term Solar Taxi came in as a result of the original project that birthed the company, where we were trying to determine the use of renewable energy for transportation systems. And based on that, we had the solar panel directly on the roof of the vehicle, which is going to be used to augment about 20% of the energy requirement of the vehicle. Now, moving on to a better iteration, we realized that there was a better efficiency of using those panels for charging stations, which were run solely by solar energy and then off-grid. and then using that to power the electric vehicles. So that is where solar taxi come on from. However, Ghana's energy mix by itself is part hydro and then part natural gas, which is fairly green to compare with the other fossil fuel sources. So tapping from the grid itself has a fair advantage of being green by itself compared to adding up renewable energy sources as well.
Okay, fantastic. Ghana has committed to only sell CO2-free cars by 2050. Before we go into the barriers for e-mobility at scale in Ghana, we will listen to the case of Norway that currently has the highest density of electrical cars per capita in the world.
Norway is currently the country in the world with the highest density of electrical cars per capita. This has not come by itself. It has been promoted through national policies that have given benefits for electrical cars compared to the normal petrol fuel cars, which has made it cheaper both to buy and to maintain electrical cars. It has taken from 10 to 15 years before we came where we are today, but that is a normal time frame for a transformative change, as moving from one technology to another in the transport section is.
From the co-founder of CeST, Hildopoku. So, Nii, we hear from the case of Norway that policies can make a difference in a technology transformation towards sustainability. What are currently the main challenges and barriers to the widespread adoption of e-mobility in Ghana? And what infrastructure and policy changes need to be implemented to support this adoption?
Well, I think obviously one of them is the lack of enough charging stations, because when somebody thinks of owning an electric vehicle, they need to think of where to charge it. And so one of the challenges really is the lack of charging stations. We just have a few. If you check Google Maps now, just have a few electric charging stations.
In Ghana?
Yes, just a few of them. And so we need more investment. We need to support more in terms of people who are working on business solutions around electric charging infrastructure and the swapping stations. We also need to see better cycling infrastructure, because one of the EVs is also e-bikes. And if we don't have, we want to see government being involved in more investing in charging infrastructure, bike lanes, and so on, so that people who want to use that options also know that they have a secure sense of routing for themselves. We've also seen in working with the different e-mobility solutions a high tax tariff on imports of the different parts of the charging electric vehicles. And so we want to see a lot more tax incentives when it comes to imports of these vehicles. But also one of the main challenges is also a general lack of awareness between both public and also government in terms of buying. Because I'll tell you, the e-mobility transition has a lot of benefits. I work within the value chain. I'm employed in my work because, e-mobility has alternate green jobs for young people. We one of the things that we ran last year, which was Charge 2022, we worked with young people in universities, brought them together to bring some of the solutions that they work in. They are engineers, students, etc. But how do you introduce them to hands-on work in the field? And so there's a lot of jobs within the value chain of the transition to e-mobility that we also need to see along those lines.
Those lines, indeed. So, Frank, Nii made mention of lack of, charging systems. So, as Solar Taxi, do you have any plans in place to, set up these charging stations or expand more across the region?
Okay. For Solar Taxi, one of the services that we provide is setting up installation and then maintenance of EV charger stations. So currently we are in partnership with setting a few stakeholders in the industry, also with fuel stations that are looking to transition to a greener economy, to set up auxiliary charging stations alongside existing fuel stations. First off, to create awareness, because when you go to buy fuel, you know that there's a charging station next to it where you can get access to. Also, secondly, because these fuel stations are already in a strategic locations around the city, and they make good use for transitioning to EV charging stations across the city. So we are in partnership with these stakeholders to move the EV charging stations around the city to make it easier for people to be able to on
Before
EVs.
you come in again,
Yeah.
Rosemary, I was wondering, I mean, these charging centers, are they not going to be too clumsy with cars parked there waiting to be charged? Don't you have vehicles that are self-rechargeable in their own way? As they're moving, they're recharging by themselves.
Yes, so at Solar Taxi, the EVs that we present have regenerative features in them. So when you hit the brakes, when you go at a considerably slower rate, you're able to recharge your vehicle as you move them along. However, with consumption and then with range, eventually you run out of power. So, but then again, it wouldn't take you by surprise or anything. There's a gauge, it's like a fuel car. You could see your gauge, how long you could go for, and then possibly where the nearest EV charging station is, so you can get more power and then continue.
So
your
how
journey.
long can a battery last?
So for electric vehicles, the range is more, the capacity of the battery is more of a range than
Okay.
the time. So when you charge your vehicle fully, you expect a minimum number of kilometers before you need to recharge. So for us, our base vehicles going for at least 250 kilometers on a single charge, and it goes all the way to 800 kilometers, depending on the vehicle of your choice. So what that means is that if you're using your vehicle in Accra for your daily route, you might need to charge it maybe every 3 days, which is actually very convenient. And then,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. So now, Frank, let me ask you again. What role does renewable energy sources play in the development of e-mobility in Ghana?
Right. So for renewable energy sources, the advantages that come out of them are quite numerous. So you have, they are cleaner in terms of using them for powering transportation solutions. They are also contributing to energy sufficiency for the individuals and also for the country. So you don't have to rely on importation of fossil fuels before you can power your country. It is all generated in-house. And then also for businesses, it ensures for uninterrupted power supply for production, so you don't have production delays and shortfall because of erratic power supplies. So that is some contribution that renewable energy is contributing to the e-mobility space. Yeah.
So now, a condition for electric vehicle to be a sustainable alternative is that the electricity used in powering it should also be sustainable, right? Either from solar, hydro, or even wind. Is there a way for the general user of electric vehicles to know that the electrical source they are using is renewable? Nii?
Yeah, I think that Frank will touch on that a bit because he's the one who's working on that. But I think that for anybody, if you are going to buy a vehicle, you should know that this is an EV or not. You know? And I think that's where basically it starts from.
Yeah, so Frank.
Yeah. So for Ghana, we are fortunate in our power generation mix. It's hydro and then thermal. Now the thermal is mostly run with natural gas, and per ratings, natural gas is actually a greener source of fossil fuel compared to, let's say, fuel or coal. So what that means is that if you're using the electricity from the grid, you're actually using green power for your vehicles. In addition to that, you could also opt for solar charging solutions, which we provide, which means that you're 100% certain that the energy you're using to power your vehicles are green and then they are sustainable. Yeah.
Okay. But is it easy for manufacturers to get these renewable energy sources?
For manufacturers, it's actually quite easier because they are able to shell the upfront cost of setting up green renewable energy solutions compared to households who might find the initial cost a bit high. However, you realize that for the period of its lifetime, going for renewable energy sources is considerably cheaper than staying on the grid, or even worse, going for fuel-powered solutions.
Right. And so do you manufacture or assemble these cars here in Ghana, and what has the market response been like?
Okay, so I'll take this question in the phase that we find ourselves in. So when we started, we wanted to understand the market, understand which vehicles that the clients will actually prefer, listen to where the demand is, where the supply actually will follow. And then based on that, we had partnerships with OEMs to bring in some semi-knockdown vehicles, which we tested the market with to understand it. Now, in our second phase, we are looking at manufacturing these vehicles right here in Ghana completely. As at last week, we were the first EV company in Ghana to get a assembling license from the government of Ghana.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and then that is going on to our next phase where we are looking at doing the total production here in Ghana. I must also add that for every vehicle manufacturer, they all do assemblies because you do not produce every part of the vehicle. There are some parts that are produced in certain regions and are brought in and are assembled.
Assembled.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, we know that the production of batteries for e-mobility needs lots of minerals that require mining, and that some of these mining activities have not been socially or environmentally friendly. Well, thank God, Ghana has discovered some lithium in commercial quantities. But what are your thoughts on these issues?
Yeah, it's something that comes up a lot when it comes to e-mobility. But I believe being in partnership with sustainable minds who are looking forward to ensuring that their processes do not unnecessarily harm the environment, and then also ensuring that some renewable energy matrices are being used in the extractive industry. That also helps to move us to the green production of the lithium batteries, and then
So, some people actually have concerns when it comes to the practicality of e-vehicles. It's like, what happens if the battery of an e-vehicle runs out of charge in the middle of nowhere? What would such a person do?
In the middle of the road.
Yes.
I can assure you that your
You
car,
know before then.
yes, your car is more likely to leave you in the middle of the road than the EV. And because the EV is actually, the EV vehicles make use of what we call the BMS, that is the battery management system. And because it's all digital, you're able to tell as good as to a kilometer how far you have left. So you're able to tell that I could go 10 kilometers or I could go 20. And then based on that, you're able to understand the range that you have left to go. Yeah.
Okay. So now, starting this whole e-mobility company in Ghana, what are, some of these unique, have you faced any challenges so far? What are the unique challenges you've faced in Ghana, especially in promoting this whole?
Okay. So Solar Taxi, we've been around since 2018. We were incorporated in 2019. So we've been at this for a while.
Okay.
And when we started, really, there wasn't much activity in the space. So the challenges that we face had to do with bracing the hurdles that any new idea comes up faces. So there was the issue of people having their own conceptions about electric vehicles. Some even were thinking that the vehicle could shock you because it's electric. So it all had to do with kind of dispersing these unfounded maybe fears, and then using education to pave way for people to understand that an electric vehicle really is just like any other vehicle, only that it's much, much better. And then based on people having the feel and experience of these vehicles, they're able to come on board. Now, one thing that we did was we did a rent-to-own experience program where people came in to rent the EVs and then use them for a period. Now, those that came in to rent the vehicles didn't want to return them for others to also enjoy. They loved it too much. They're like, wow, it's so cost efficient, it's so quiet, it's so, So then based on that, I realized that the market was there, the interest was there. People just needed to be educated about electric vehicles and all the benefits.
Very interesting. Finally, before we go, Nii, I know that Ghana has a plan, a national energy transition plan. Now, how can government and private sector work together to promote the growth of e-mobility industry in Ghana over the next few years?
Well, I think that the issues, like you mentioned, Ghana has an energy transition plan, but we also need a net zero plan for our transport sector. So I think that we first of all need to also develop policy around transport and the future of our public transport and how we transport ourselves. But also government needs to work together with some of the stakeholders in the space, Solar Taxi, Manual Mobility, and the other relevant stakeholders within the space. We need more government buy-in and support to the transition of the
Right.
Indeed. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your expertise and insights on this conversation. Now, if you're a listener between the ages of 11 and 25 and get inspired to write, make a video, or take photographs of issues relating to environmental problems and solutions, or if you know someone who does, the YRE has its annual competition out now. Visit our website at cestint.com/YRE competition for further details. Grab this opportunity to give the environment a voice. Who knows, you could be our next lucky winner. On this episode of SDG-Hub, we have touched on several aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals like SDG 3, good health and well-being, 7, affordable and clean energy, Goal 8, decent work and economic growth, Goal 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure, Goal 11, sustainable cities and communities, and Goal 13, climate action. Make sure you tune in at the same time next week as we continue discussions on all things sustainable development right here on Asaase Radio 99.5 so that people and planet can prosper.
And thank you so much for staying with us on the SDG Hub. We've been speaking with Frank Cann from Solar Taxi and Nii Noi Omaboe from Impact Hub Accra and YRE. I've been your host, Emmanuel Aboagye-Wiafe, and I did this with
Rosemary Balami.
We go back to Beatrice.